All right, redirect.
Thank you.
Matt Johnson, are you kidding me? Interrupting a witness and saying, thank you, that's enough. You're not allowed to interrupt a witness. I'm shocked she got away with that.
You got to hand it to this judge.
Yes.
He has so much patience, wow, and command of the courtroom, and giving her, he just wants to get her a fair trial, and he is really approaching this in the right manner.
I agree with you, but eventually if she keeps doing it, I think that may try his patience. Before we head back into court, let's bring in criminal defense attorney Silva Megerditchian. Thank you so much, Silva, for joining us. I have to ask you this, because one of the things I noticed, I don't know if this is unique to California or not, the prosecutor will make an objection, for instance, objection speculation, and the judge will say sustained as to hearsay. So the judge is correcting the prosecutor to put the right objection grounds on the record. I'm a little surprised.
You know, Judge Ashley, we have that. First of all, hi, Matt. Hi, Judge Ashley. Always a pleasure. You know, Judge, it's funny. It happens to me a lot in trial also, where the judge will have their own objection in their mind, and we might, you know, I'll say objection relevance, and the judge will say, actually, I'm going to sustain on the grounds of hearsay. You know, they'll do it to let the trial go forward. Some judges, it's really dependent on the judges. Some judges will say, to overrule, that's not the proper objection, counsel, or they'll even go farther and say, counsel, you know, review your objections because that's not relevant or that's not the proper objection. But for most of the time, look, you have a captive juror, right, jury pool. You have a pro se defendant, and Judge Ashley, you know this so well. In trial ad, we're taught don't ask unnecessary questions. I think Lori is really enjoying her time. She's asking questions that I'm like, where is she trying to go? It just seems like they're in the universe floating with no purpose. And I think the judge's intent right now is just, let's keep this going. You know, the objection is, if there's a worthy objection here, it might not be the right grounds, but these are the grounds, it's sustained, and it would be ridiculous to allow it in. I do think the DA kind of went, you know, I don't think her questions were necessarily harassment or, you know, anything unduly. They're not the smartest questions, but you see this with a pro se client. I think the saddest thing is, you know, again, it's kind of goofy and it's funny, but still, this is a woman who allegedly, or, you know, a jury found her guilty of killing her children and, you know, is facing murder charges on Charles Vallow, and yet she's asking questions like kind of a 13-year-old. So, yeah, it's interesting to say the least.
That's a good point. And this is a woman that believes that she is a goddess, and she was to usher in the 144 and, you know, with her church. So she has a lot of beliefs, and she believes that she can act as an attorney who attacks witnesses there on the stand. But this is exactly what she wanted, right? She wanted the spotlight.
You're right. You've said that from the beginning, and she said she didn't want to be back in that jail. She wanted to be, but I also think she thinks she can manipulate the jury. So we'll see how that goes for her.
Well, it's interesting also that you just feel for this everyday person, Nancy Jo, that gets like wrapped up in all of this and having to say all of this in front of the world and her church.
I agree.
And she's going to be back on the stand. So, all right, this is what we have to do. We have to take a short break. Nancy Jo Hancock will be back on Redirect as Court TV Live returns with more coverage out of Maricopa County, Arizona.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Matt Johnson, in today from Michael Ayala. Day 3 of testimony is underway in the cult mom conspiracy trial for Lori Vallow. She's accused of conspiring with her brother, Alex Cox, to kill her 4th husband, Charles Vallow.
Cox shot Vallow to death back in July of 2019 after he claimed that Charles Vallow hit him in the head with a bat. Police initially called it self-defense, but officials reopened the case, and eventually they did rule that it was murder. Alex Cox was never charged because he died 5 months after Charles Vallow was killed. Now, Lori is the sole defendant, and she is representing herself in court.
Now, one of the last people to see Vallow alive was a woman he met on a church dating website. She's now on redirect by the state of Arizona. Let's get you back into court.
Did you reach out to the police, or did the police reach out to you after you learned Charles was?
I reached out to the police. I was surprised, given that if they had seen his phone, they would see the text communication that we had and that we had been at dinner that night before he died.
In terms of speaking with Charles's family, Kay Woodcock, did you know her before this?
No.
Had you heard her name through speaking with Charles?
Yes, from Charles. I knew that he had changed his life insurance to his sister Kay, and he talked quite a bit about Kay and his love for her and the relationship with JJ and how that they had adopted JJ.
So you understood the closeness he had with his sister?
Absolutely.
And you said you reached out to pay your condolences.
I did.
When you learned that Charles was dead, were you shocked?
I was watching the TV and it was talking about a case, and his picture came on the screen, and shocked is an understatement. Yes.
In terms of talking with Kay, have you ever tried to talk to other people to learn about or verify if the stuff that Charles told you was accurate?
No.
Is what you are telling us just what he told you?
What I'm telling you is part of what he told me. There's a lot more.
And did you tell the police all of what he told you? That you could remember at that time, I should say.
I believe, no, I thought I would probably be interviewed again, and it was more an ask-answer format. There was, I remember being surprised that I wasn't interviewed again.
Okay. Because Charles had shared so much with you.
Correct.
In terms of the defendant's brother, Adam, did you ever talk with him about the case?
No.
Through media, did you recognize him?
I recognized him because I'd seen him on reports. And I knew that he was going to be testifying in this hearing.
When did you see him? When was this interaction?
Like
this pickleball?
a week and a half ago.
So a week and a half ago, when you see him at a pickleball tournament with your grandkid, you say hi to him?
Basically.
You don't talk at all about the case?
We might have talked about that we were testifying. I don't know. No details for sure.
Okay.
Just a general, and then he saw who my grandson was, and the end.
So nothing about, hey, I'm going to say this, or Charles told me this?
Absolutely not.
When you and I met, did we go through your testimony? Or let me get this right. Did we go through what you told the police?
Yeah.
Did I indicate to you to just tell the truth?
You told me to tell the truth.
Whatever that was.
Whatever that was.
You were asked about the fact that you knew Charles for basically a week, right?
Correct.
Did he make an impression on you?
Charles was a large personality.
Okay, so we're going to hit the pause button right there in Maricopa County for this update in the battered and burned murder retrial for Linda Sturmer. This is the second time that she's been tried in that same Michigan courthouse for the murder of her husband, Todd.
Prosecutors say that she beat him, set him on fire, and then ran him over with their family van. Key questions in the case center on how and where the fire started. Sturmer claims she was downstairs doing laundry when she heard her husband scream, and that when she went upstairs, she saw him engulfed in flames.
Now, last week, a retired state police fire investigator told the jury that he smelled gasoline on the victim's pants, indicating that he may have been set on fire. Well, today, the defense called their own expert who refuted those claims.
If there is a theory that Mr. Sturmer was set on fire with gasoline, do you remember what Mr. Leroy said in terms of the evidence of any gasoline in the house?
He opined that through extrapolating the gas that was detected on his sweatpants, confirmed there was gasoline inside the living room.
And what is that in terms of scientific certainty versus speculation?
All speculation.
And what is speculation in terms of an expert? Is that appropriate?
It is not.
Why not?
Sorry. A person who is doing a scientifically proper investigation is trying to disprove those different hypotheses, and there was nothing that Mr. Leroy did to show that there was an intentionally set incendiary fire.
The witness also testified that he believed the chimney chase could have been the origin of the fire, even though Scott Leroy previously testified that it was not. The jury has gone home for the day. Of course, we'll keep you updated on this trial tomorrow when they resume their deliberations.
All right, we're going to step aside right now. When we come back, Nancy Jo Hancock wraps up her testimony in the cult mom conspiracy trial for Lori Vallow Daybell. Keep it right here on your front row seat to justice. A cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage today, only on CourtTv.
The state's wrapping up its redirect of Nancy Jo Hancock, a woman who dated Charles Vallow. She saw him once. They met through a dating app. Let's go back into court.
By his wit and just gregarious, big personality with his Southern accent.
You were asked a lot on cross about you dating a married man.
Correct.
What was your impression of where this relationship was between Charles and Lori Vallow when you and Charles started talking?
Well, I knew that they had separated and that they had reconciled, and I knew he had filed and then he had recanted that. But he also had met with an attorney to begin the process again and was very emphatic that he was done with all the craziness.
And was that last time something that you understood to be very recent?
Prior to us meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
When he's talking to you, he's telling you about, you said, sort of the whole year of 2019, correct? But this last understanding that you had of him now going back to a divorce lawyer, was that something you understood to be very recent in time to that July 10th when you're meeting?
Correct.
Okay. And did you understand him to have even met with an attorney?
I believe he told me that, yes.
So that was where you were at?
Yes.
And that's what you understood Charles to be at?
Yes, and I will say, after having dinner with him, I did tell him that no one would want to be serious with him until he was further along in accomplishing that divorce that he was in the process of, including myself.
So even though you knew he was just barely starting now, did you still want to meet with him again?
Yeah, I wouldn't have entertained a serious relationship, but he was fun, and yeah, I would have met with him again.
All right. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Are there any questions for this witness from the jury?
All right, they're going to figure out the jury question. Matt, we've been talking about something I just want to mention, and that is how much time, if any, did Lori have, given she's incarcerated, to actually interview these witnesses before cross-examining them in court?
Well, you know, she gave up her right to a speedy trial because she's gone on local media there in Maricopa County in Arizona, and she expressed that she was worried because several other women in the jail where she's staying were waiting for their trials for several years, and she didn't want that to happen. So this is part of that.
Yeah.
All right, the jury question, we're ready to hear that. Let's get you back into court.
Verbally, any indications of stress?
Definitely, he was very worried that.
I think we'll just keep it with a yes/no answer for this question. Does the defense have follow-up based on that juror question?
All right, Lori didn't have a question there, this defendant who's acting as pro se. Let's bring back our guest for this hour, criminal defense attorney in California, Silva Megerditchian. Silva, so what are your thoughts on how that cross and that redirect went?
Well, look, you know, it's funny what you guys brought up before, too. Lori, again, is not an attorney. There's a reason why we leave law school with hundreds of thousands of debt. Why, you know, we still pay down our debt after 20 years of practice, right? Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, look, I found that the redirect did a good job on cleaning things a little bit up, especially because Lori did something actually that will stick in the minds of the jury. So you like dating married men. You know, it shows that, you know, maybe Mr. Vallow wasn't, you know, this perfect human being, and that might stick in the jury's minds. I think that's the only thing that she slipped in there that was viable. I do wish that maybe the prosecutor would chill out on the redirect, because it's a little bit redundant, it's a little bit of a waste of time. I think with this witness, she did clear up what she needed to clear up. But again, I think it establishes that, you know, it's interesting, right? I think the one thing that really sticks out to me is he just met this woman and really wanted to tell her everything about really his life, how poorly his marriage was going. She kept on reiterating, right? Like, you know, he told me a lot. He told me a lot. And I feel like the jury would actually like to know, well, what a lot did he tell you? So I think it was a very interesting witness. I think it leaves a little bit of gaps that I wish were filled, ironically, that redirect did not ask about. But again, I don't think it helps Lori at all in any capacity, honestly.
I do think the redirect tends to, in my mind, be that the prosecution wants the last word, like they're matching Lori and saying, okay, you're gonna ask all those things, we're gonna ask all these things. Let's listen together though, because you made a really good point, and that's when Lori starts dealing with the fact that you were dating a married man. Let's listen to that together.
Do you go on dates with married men?
I'm going
to naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
And so, Silva, my question is about the demeanor of Lori and the way that she's asking questions. She's not trained. Do you think that's off-putting to a jury potentially?
Well, Judge Ashley, the personalization, right? Why do we need lawyers? Because lawyers are third parties that don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to being a witness or being part of the action. So we can remain neutral. Our passion comes from really wanting to free our client and get our client out of trouble. Her personalization is catty, right? And I don't mean to speak of a feminine term. I mean aggressive cattiness that's unnecessary, that takes away from factual targeting, right? And that hurts her, because just like we're snickering, right, when we hear this, the jury is too. The jury understands that she has a very personal stake in the game, and she is taking pot shots. Pot shots. She doesn't need to. She could go in, she could go out.
What a great point, the emotional aspect of it. All right, Silva Megerditchian, sorry that we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Well, ahead next hour, we're going to get you back into that Maricopa County Superior Court for more testimony in the cult mob conspiracy trial for pro se defendant Lori Vallow.